Okay, so are you ready to dive into some pretty interesting stuff today?
Always.
We've got this whole stack of articles about Trump's second term, and
Wow.
yeah,
It's second term already.
I know, right?
It's flying by.
So we've got everything from his inauguration, which, by the way, foreign leaders were there.
Oh, yeah, I heard about it. That was a first.
It was a first ever.
That's wild.
Yeah, and then we're gonna get into his legal battles that are ongoing,
Oh, boy.
and even his plans to bring back TikTok.
Seriously, I thought that ship had sailed.
Right.
Okay, so where should we start? That inauguration sounds pretty wild.
Yeah, let's jump into that. What really struck me was the guest list. I mean,
Yeah, who was there?
you had like Javier Milei, the new president of Argentina, the self-proclaimed anarcho-capitalist.
Oh, yeah, he's a character.
Great. And then he's like standing there with, more traditional leaders like Italy's Giorgia Meloni.
Interesting.
And they both have been pretty open about their admiration for Trump.
I can see why they'd be drawn to him. They're all kind of cut from the same cloth in a way.
Yeah, and then there's the fact that China sent their vice president.
Really. Despite all the tension over trade and Taiwan.
Exactly. I mean, it's like on the one hand, you have Trump trying to strengthen ties with leaders who share his views, shaking things up diplomatically.
Well,
but then you have China kind of playing it cool, keeping those lines of communication open.
it makes you wonder what it all means for U.S. foreign policy going forward.
For sure. I mean, are we going to see a shift towards, relationships based more on ideology than just like pure strategy?
It's a good question. I guess time will tell.
Yeah, for sure. But speaking of things that are changing rapidly, we should probably talk about Trump's legal battles.
Oh, yeah, that court ruling on his immunity claim. That was a big one.
Huge. A federal appeals court just straight up denied it.
So they're saying that even a former president isn't above the law when it comes to potential crimes committed in office.
That's exactly what they're saying. And they didn't mince words either. They called his actions after the 2020 election an unprecedented assault on democracy.
Wow, strong words.
Yeah, but you know what I found really interesting?
What's that?
The way they kept referring to the president as an officer.
Ah, you noticed that, did you?
Yeah, it just seems significant.
Well, it's a crucial detail, actually, because officer is directly linked to a clause in the 14th Amendment.
Oh, right. The one that bars anyone who engaged in insurrection from holding office again.
Exactly. This ruling could have massive implications for Trump's political future.
So it's not just about accountability for past actions. It could actually prevent him from running again.
That's the potential here.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
Now, of course, it's up to the Supreme Court to decide if they want to hear Trump's appeal, which would determine the timeline for his trial.
So it's like on one side, he's celebrating this second term with this strange inauguration, and on the other side, he's facing this legal battle that could end his career.
Talk about a high-stakes balancing act.
And then there's the whole TikTok situation.
Yeah, what's the latest there?
Well, just when we thought it was gone for good, Trump pulls this move out of nowhere.
What do you mean?
So the ban was set to take effect. Apple and Google had pulled the app from their stores, and suddenly Trump's talking about bringing it back, but with a 50% U.S. ownership stake.
Whoa, hold on. Can he even do that? Doesn't the law specifically mandate the ban?
Right. That's what everyone's trying to figure out. The legal experts are scratching their heads.
And what about all those daily fines companies were facing for hosting the app? Can Trump just promise to shield them from that? Is that even legal?
That's another big question. It seems like a lot of companies like Apple and Google are taking a big risk by just taking his word for it.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see how this is dividing people politically. Even some Republicans are saying he needs to follow the law.
But here's the thing. TikTok's not just sitting back and waiting. They immediately restored service in the U.S. after Trump's announcement.
Smart move.
Right. It's like they're appealing directly to the public and maybe even to Trump himself.
They're playing the game.
Totally. It's like, hey, we're back.
Yeah.
America loves us. Let's make this work.
It's savvy.
Mm-hmm.
It plays on people's desire to keep using the app, and it plays on Trump's tendency to respond to pressure and popularity.
It's a story we'll definitely need to keep following. I mean, it's crazy how fast things change in politics. Yeah. 1 minute TikTok's gone, the next it's back. Who knows what tomorrow will bring? Feels like we're living in some kind of political drama,
Yeah, it's definitely been a wild ride.
First, that crazy inauguration with all those world leaders, and now Trump's in the middle of all these legal battles and trying to control social media.
There's a lot to unpack for sure. And speaking of that inauguration,
yeah,
we talked about the guest list, but what about the reaction from around the world?
Yeah, you're right. It wasn't just who was there, it was the whole vibe.
Exactly. It was like he was sending a message about who his allies are.
Right. And the reactions were all over the place.
Some countries, especially those with right-leaning governments, were totally on board with it.
Like Milei and Meloni, right?
Yeah, they seem to like his vision of, strong individual countries
Mm.
and less global control.
But then what about China? They sent their vice president, but it's been pretty quiet over there.
China's got to be careful. They need the U.S. for their economy,
Yeah.
but they don't trust Trump, and they're worried about Taiwan.
It's like they're walking a tightrope, trying to stay friendly, but ready to push back if they have to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you have countries in Europe who are, more into the traditional way of doing things.
The liberal world order.
Yeah, they're watching all this with a lot of concern. They don't know what it means for the relationships with the U.S. and for global stability.
It's a lot to take in. I think the world is kind of holding its breath to see what Trump actually does in his second term, not just what he says.
Makes sense. But, hey, speaking of things that are hard to grasp,
Yeah.
can we go back to those legal battles for a minute?
Sure.
That court ruling on presidential immunity is huge,
Yeah.
and we need to talk about that officer term they used.
Right. It was in the 14th Amendment.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's not just a technicality. It could actually stop Trump from holding office again.
So if the Supreme Court agrees with the lower court and uses that officer label, could that actually prevent him from running for president again?
It's definitely a possibility.
Yeah.
The 14th Amendment was made to stop people who were involved in an insurrection from getting federal office again.
Right.
So if the courts decide that what Trump did after the 2020 election fits that definition of insurrection, it could be game over for his political career.
Wow. So he's celebrating this second term, but at the same time, this legal thing could completely derail everything.
It's a crazy situation. It reminds us that even the most powerful people have to follow the law. And this case could change how we hold presidents accountable in the future.
It's setting a precedent, right? It's saying what a president can and can't do even after they leave office.
Yeah. Now let's talk about another one of his power moves, the TikTok thing.
Oh, man, it was like something out of a movie.
What do you mean?
The app is gone, everyone's saying goodbye, and then bam, Trump announces this joint venture.
Right, with the U.S. owning half of it.
Yeah. But is that even legal? The law was pretty clear about banning it.
That's what everyone's trying to figure out. It seems like he's trying to just ignore the rules.
And what about those huge fines? Can he really just tell companies not to worry about them?
It's a tough spot for companies like Apple and Google. They want to keep their users happy, and they want to be on this popular app, but they could get in big trouble if they break the law, even if Trump says it's okay.
It feels like everyone's trying to figure out the rules of the game here, but while all the lawyers and politicians are arguing, TikTok is making its own moves.
You mean them putting the app back up right away?
Yeah, they didn't waste any time. They're using their popularity to get people on their side and maybe even pressure Trump into going along with it.
It's a smart move. It shows how much power these social media companies have. They're not just sitting back and watching. They're trying to influence what happens.
And it's not just about the U.S. This whole TikTok thing is global. It brings up questions about privacy, security, freedom of speech, even the future of the internet.
It's a complicated issue, and there's no easy answer. It's going to be a fight for years to come as we try to figure out how to control these platforms and keep everyone safe.
Man, we've covered a lot today, haven't we?
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind. Trump's second term is already proving to be pretty eventful.
To say the least, from that inauguration with all the foreign leaders to these legal battles and the whole TikTok saga.
It's easy to get lost in the weeds, with all the politics and the court stuff.
Right. So let's bring it back to our listeners for a minute.
Yeah, why should they care about all of this? How does it affect them?
Well, I think one of the biggest takeaways is that Trump's foreign policy, the alliances he's building could have a real impact on all of us.
Think about it. Those trade deals he's making could change the prices we pay for things.
And those alliances could either make existing conflicts worse or maybe even help to prevent new ones.
And then there's the whole thing about holding a president accountable for what they do in office.
Right. If the courts say that Trump can be punished for stuff he did as president, that sets a huge precedent.
It means that no one, not even the president, is above the law.
And that's really important for democracy. It makes sure that everyone plays by the rules.
And then there's TikTok, which might seem like just a fun app, but it's actually a much bigger issue.
It's about the power of these big tech companies and how we control them.
It raises questions about privacy, security, freedom of speech, even the future of the internet.
These are things that will affect us for years to come.
So as you're reading the news or talking about these issues with your friends and family, remember to think critically.
Look at things from different angles and ask yourself how these things might affect you and your community.
This isn't just about being informed. It's about getting involved.
It's about realizing that you have a voice and that you can help shape the future.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with one final thought.
Trump's second term is definitely a time of a lot of uncertainty.
But it's also a time of opportunity.
It's a chance to have real conversations, to hold our leaders accountable, and to fight for the kind of future we want.
By staying informed, thinking critically, and speaking up, we can navigate these difficult times and make the world a better place.
A place that's fairer, more just, more prosperous for everyone.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
We hope you learned something new and that you'll keep asking questions and stay engaged with the world around you.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.